That's why I am saying that it is the same. Murdering someone for their difference is not good, whoever does it. It's not good. So that's why I said you weren't saying what I heard was not what you meant.
The View and Whoopi Goldberg and her take on why we are now involved in the Iran war. Believe it or not, it's going to tie Nancy Guthrie and Iran together. Watch.
What if I told you one of daytime TV's sharpest voices just went full lightsaber on a talk show legend? Yeah, you heard that right. Megyn Kelly didn't just clap back, she completely tore into Whoopi Goldberg on live TV. And the reason? It might actually shock you. Was it one of the most out-of-touch moments ever aired on national television? Or did Whoopi simply misread the situation entirely? Stick around, because this showdown is exactly what you didn't know you needed.
Whoopi Goldberg, known for her commitment to facts, Miss, I feel so bad for all the little children that Matt Gaetz allegedly molested, who now will not be able to come forward. She's such a liar. This is what she came out to say on the issue of trans athletes.
When you look, transgender Americans, less than 1% of American adults identify as transgender. Right. Yeah. And when you add in youth who identify as transgender, that number comes to just about 1.4.
If you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you think. What started as a typical daytime debate, just a casual back and forth with a bit of playful tension, quickly turned into something far from ordinary. Whoopi Goldberg, usually known for her quick wit and smooth comebacks, suddenly stepped into territory that even experienced commentators tend to avoid. A space so detached from reality, it almost felt unbelievable in how bold it was.
I have heard from in certain circles, I don't want to get specific, that you're not allowed to darken your skin as any sort of a costume, or it's racist. I heard that. I'm trying to remember where I heard that, but I definitely heard from many, many leftists, you are not allowed to do that. It's racist. It's always been racist. Don't pay any attention to the fact that Billy Crystal opened the Oscars wearing blackface. The point is, it's always been racist, and everybody always knew that. Enter Whoopi Goldberg with a solution to how to handle ICE being at the Super Bowl looking for illegals.
Everyone watching could feel it. Something unforgettable was about to happen. And they were right. Megyn Kelly, with that signature stare that could stop a volcano in its tracks, leaned in with a calm, controlled presence that made it clear she was both unimpressed and fully ready to tear the argument apart.
Today is something new. And it's, I was thinking about it yesterday because I thought, well, okay, why haven't we been talking about Savannah Guthrie and what's going on there?
And her mother.
Why have we not been talking about the Epstein files? Because that's still there.
Yeah.
This is meant to get us so worked up that we are unable to see anything else.
The first words from Whoopi set the tone. A statement so out of sync with reality that the audience almost paused, wondering if they'd somehow slipped into a world where facts and logic didn't quite matter. It was the kind of moment that would make fact-checkers uneasy and give late-night comedians plenty to work with.
That is true crazy talk. How does ABC allow this person to go on the air every day and talk to us about the news? We launched the Iran war, in which 7 U.S. service personnel have died, and the latest is 140 have been wounded. Most not seriously, thank God, but some seriously. That President Trump would do that to distract from the Nancy Guthrie skin. I'm sorry to laugh. It's just the absurdity of it is so readily apparent.
As Whoopi began speaking, there was a spark in her eyes, the kind that hints at either sharp insight or a serious misstep. And this time, it quickly became the latter. She delivered a claim so far removed from the facts that viewers at home could almost feel their jaws drop all at once. Megyn, known for her calm but cutting reactions, leaned in slightly, her expression caught between disbelief and the restraint of someone holding back a laugh at a painfully awkward moment. The studio lights caught every subtle raise of her eyebrow, each one building toward the moment when logic would finally push its way back into the conversation. When she responded, her words were measured and precise, cutting cleanly through the confusion like a blade. Piece by piece, the argument started to fall apart. as if it had no real foundation to stand on. The audience, who may have expected nothing more than a routine exchange, suddenly realized they were watching something much bigger. The kind of live TV moment that gets clipped, turned into memes, and picked apart online for weeks.
Sit in the sun. That's the first thing. and this is the only time you can probably ever do this, give yourself a Latin accent.
You know, Whoopi, that is
And
such a
just
good
see-
idea.
And see if she can tell who's who.
Okay, you get the cocoa butter and you tan your face with it, and then you speak in a Spanish accent, and that's fine. And you know what? At least Whoopi is consistent, because Whoopi actually was fine with Ted Danson wearing actual minstrel face, blackface, like the deeply offensive stuff from like the 40s films. She stood right next to him when he did that at a roast.
Watching it all unfold, you couldn't ignore the irony. Whoopi, often praised for her wit and sharp observations, seemed to drift so far into the absurd that it left an opening for truth to step in, with Megyn leading the way. It felt like one of those rare moments where calm, clarity, and steady logic collided with an argument that barely held together. Each point Megyn made didn't just correct the facts. It landed with a timing that had the audience both nodding and quietly amused, a balance that's hard to pull off on live TV. Instead of reacting with outrage, she let a slow, controlled smile form, the kind that says everything without a single word. You could tell what was coming. She was about to take the entire argument apart, piece by piece, in front of millions of viewers who were suddenly very glad they stayed tuned in. Every response carried the tone of someone breaking down something complex in the simplest way possible, while still keeping a sense of composure that made the whole moment even more impactful.
Adam, that's crazy talk. The Epstein thing is also crazy, but it's been more widespread. So, like, that's your standard garden variety leftist crazy talking point. The stuff about, like, Nancy Guthrie. Trump doesn't want people talking about Nancy Guthrie, so we invaded Iran. Not invaded, but attacked. What? That's insane. That's not a well person. And while we're on the subject of Whoopi, and I'll get back to Iran in a moment, but while we're on the subject of Whoopi, we've been trying to get to this for a couple of days.
What could have turned into a tense clash instead became a lesson in verbal finesse, where every move was timed to both entertain and completely dismantle the argument. The visual contrast only made it more striking. Whoopi, fully confident in her stance, spoke with the energy of someone convinced she was already winning. Meanwhile, Megyn's expressions carried a quiet mix of amusement and careful analysis, like someone observing a situation unfold exactly as expected. It felt like two completely different styles colliding, confidence versus control, flair versus precision, and the audience was right in the middle of it. Megyn wasn't just reacting, she was a step ahead the entire time. Each argument was met with a response that felt prepared, sharp, and impossible to ignore. What started as a simple exchange quickly turned into something much more intense, with Megyn guiding the conversation with steady control while the opposing points struggled to keep up. It almost felt surreal. One side speaking with full confidence, the other responding with calm, focused precision that left little room to push back. You could feel the tension building, with viewers both on edge and completely drawn in, knowing they were watching a moment that was about to tip into something unforgettable.
Watch this moment where, of course, predictably, naturally, Oprah tries to make it about herself. And you can see Whoopi kind of recoil. Watch.
When we talk about Black excellence, we're talking about Quincy.
My life changed forever and for the better after meeting him. He actually discovered me for The Color Purple, which was my first film.
Yeah. Me too.
You can see Whoopi like kind of pull away from her.
At one point, Kelly paused just long enough for the absurdity to hang in the air, letting Whoopi's remarks settle like something the room didn't quite know how to process. The audience, sensing what might come next, leaned in, waiting for the moment when the conversation would tip from control into full exposure. When Kelly finally continued, her response landed with a precision that cut straight through the confusion, leaving a mix of clarity and stunned reactions from both the panel and viewers at home. What made it stand out wasn't just what she said, but how she said it, calm, measured, and laced with just enough disbelief to underline the point without raising her voice. It turned the exchange into something unexpectedly sharp, almost unintentionally humorous in its timing. The moment played out like a verbal fencing match where one side was scrambling and the other stayed composed, deflecting every weak argument with ease. With each exchange, the gaps in the reasoning became harder to ignore, and the entire discussion gradually lost its footing under the weight of steady, relentless pushback.
From Whoopi Goldberg, who's constantly, despite the fact that she's like another Michelle Obama, despite the fact that she is one of the richest, most successful Americans in U.S. history. She's one of those people who's got the EGOT, the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. She's been lauded on every stage. She's a movie star. She's a household name. She hosts this show every day where she gets to express her opinions. She's a multi-millionaire. She still complains regularly.
There was a moment when Whoopi seemed to realize, just faintly, that the tone was shifting, but the awareness came too late. Megyn's steady logic and sharp, controlled delivery had already set the direction of the exchange, building toward a moment that felt almost perfectly timed, even if it was unfolding naturally in real time. Everyone watching understood the unspoken reality of live television clashes. Once momentum shifts, it rarely comes back. What followed was less about winning or losing, and more about contrast. One side held firm to a perspective, the other responding with calm precision, and a touch of sharp wit that kept the conversation tight and focused. It turned what could have been a routine debate into something far more engaging, where timing and tone mattered just as much as the arguments themselves. As the exchange continued, Megyn stayed composed, steering the discussion with clear, measured responses that kept everything grounded. The audience, sensing where things were headed, stayed locked in, waiting for each line that pushed the moment forward and gave it its lasting impact.
Goldberg, speaking of actresses who don't know how to act.
People on both sides of the aisle are saying the account from Nome and Bovine does not seem to match what they watched with their own two eyes. So the question is,
you're an idiot.
How long can they continue this? They murdered a man. He is standing, he has his phone, and he has a bottle of water. He has his phone and a bottle of water, and they shot him 10 times.
And then came the final point, delivered not with force, but with a calm clarity that made it hit even harder. Kelly pulled together the inconsistencies, highlighted the gaps in the reasoning, and tied everything into a clean, structured response that left little room for confusion. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but that's what made it stand out. The audience reacted in a mix of laughter, surprise, and applause as the moment landed with full effect. What had started as a heated exchange now felt fully exposed, with every point laid out in plain view. For a brief second, there was that classic post-moment silence, the kind that follows a strong on-air exchange when everyone is processing what just happened. Then came a shift as clips began circulating online within minutes. Social media lit up with reactions, replaying the exchange and breaking down the timing, tone, and precision behind it all. People weren't just reacting to what was said, but also to how it unfolded, the pacing, the restraint, and the way the conversation built toward that final moment. It quickly turned into one of those TV clips that get shared, debated, and rewatched, not just for the content, but for the way the entire exchange played out.
Part of the torture that intelligent people have to endure being on this earth is being surrounded by idiots like that. It's not easy. It's not easy. You think it's like easy. It's a gift to have two brain cells. The audience is feeling it with me right now. It's not. It's not a gift. It's actually a curse. Sometimes I'd rather be an idiot. I'd rather be somebody who can sit in that view audience and be like, yeah, he was just standing there with his phone, his water bottle. God, they're so mean. Like what's the name of that actress? Yeah, it makes me want a hot dog real bad. What's her name? Jennifer.
This wasn't just another television segment. It felt like one of those moments that quickly takes on a life of its own online. The clash of strong opinions and sharp responses turned an ordinary debate into something widely shared and heavily discussed. Megyn Kelly's approach stood out for its timing, clarity, and controlled delivery. Rather than escalating the tone, she stayed composed, using structured reasoning and a bit of sharp wit to push the conversation forward. That balance of calm and precision is what made the exchange so replayable for viewers. By the end, it was clear the segment had struck a nerve with audiences. not because of volume or intensity, but because of how directly and confidently the arguments were handled. The contrast in styles made the moment memorable, and that's what drove people to re-watch and break it down afterward. Clips began circulating quickly, with viewers focusing on different parts of the exchange and debating what was said and how it was delivered. It turned into one of those broadcast moments that get revisited not just for the topic itself, but for the way the conversation unfolded in real time.
Whoopi Goldberg was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
One day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended because you know who showed up.
Yeah.
And he was, whether he was asked or not. This
But he
is a
was
man
invited.
who didn't care what happened to the officers on January 6th.
She promotes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every day.
Ultimately, what made the exchange stand out wasn't just the clash of opinions, but the way logic, timing, and humor shaped the direction of the conversation. An otherwise routine debate turned into a moment that felt far more engaging than expected, simply because of how sharply it unfolded. It showed how tone and delivery can completely change the impact of an argument. With calm reasoning and well-timed responses, a tense discussion turned into something audiences found both entertaining and thought-provoking. By the end, it wasn't just about who said what, it was about how the moment played out in real time. That combination of composure, clarity, and sharp wit is what made the segment stick with viewers, leading to clips being replayed and discussed long after it aired.